Parshas Mishpatim, Ve'ela Mishpatim Asher Tasim Lefneim. The parsha starts off that these are the halachas, these are the laws that you should place in front of them. So what does this mean? This is what I want to discuss. So Rashi, Kol Mokom Shenemar Eila Pasalas Rishayim. Whenever the Torah uses the term Eila, these, it means it's puzzling the ones that are earlier. The meaning it's coming to say different and to change, to show a contrast to what was learned previously. But if the pasuk says Ve'ela, like the pasuk over here says, Ma'aseh el Rishayim, it means it's adding on to what we previously learned. Maha Rishayim Misinai, Af Ela Misinai. Just like the first halachas that we learned are from Har Sinai, so too the halachas over here are also from Har Sinai. That's point number one. Point number two is V'lama Nisbach Parshas Dinim LeParshas Mizbeach. Why do we have it that the parsha of Dinim is next to the parsha of the Mizbeach? Lo Malach, to teach you Shetasim Sanhedrin Eitzel HaMikdash. So you should put the Sanhedrin next to the Mikdash. Or some have the Girsa here next to the Mizbeach. So we already mentioned this Rashi last week, and we explained that the pshat is because the Gemara says in Brachas that you would have a havamina that the concept of dinim, the concept of laws, is just that to keep the peace between the neighbors and the neighborhood. It's not necessarily because it's dinei Torah, it's not necessarily because it relates to mitzvahs. It's just the right thing to do as a civilized people to keep society going properly. So that's why we have dinim. But it's not true. It's like the Gemara Kamash Malon that the dinim are also Torah. The dinim also have a din of Torah as well. Now, I want to get back to that in a little bit, but let's just go back to what Rashi says. Asher Tasim, another diuk in Rashi over here is obviously depending on the girsa, because some have the girsa Shetasim Sanhedrin Eitzel HaMikdash, some have the girsa Shetasim Sanhedrin Eitzel HaMizbeach. So we said over the Maral last week, the Geraria explains that in the Beis HaMikdash, a person is able to bring himself closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by bringing karbanis, and through Bezdin, a person Bezdin keeps people closer to each other. And we said that that's Gufa, the point of Bezdin. So one of the basic Mefarshim of Rashi is the Mincha Belula. And he's ma'ir on this diuk, and he says that first we started off talking about the Mizbeach, we ended off talking about the Beis HaMikdash. So he says like this. He says, "L'lamdecha, to teach you she'af bizman shelo yiyeh mizbeach, even at a time where there won't be a mizbeach in Golus, yiyeh meishavam b'makom hamikdash." Sanhedrin will take the place. The Bezdin will take the place of the Makom HaMikdash. He doesn't say Sanhedrin, but he's referring to the Mikdash Ma'at, a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash, a place where Torah is being learned, and our avodah, our tefillas, our Makom the Karbanis. So. And he says, that there should be a fear of Shemayim on us in these places as well. Like the Gemara says in Brachas, on Daf Ches, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Miyayim Shecharav Beis HaMikdash, Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu, Al Ram Shalach B'vad, that the only thing that still exists, that's still left over from the Beis HaMikdash, is these Dal Ram Shal Halacha, which we spoke many times already, that in these Dal Ram Shal Halacha, there's no Churban. And it's interesting, Rabbi Zachover speaks out in one of his droshes that the Beis HaMikdash, the Iker Hashras HaShchina, this is definitely true in the second Beis HaMikdash, this already says in Chazal, that the Iker Hashras HaShchina in the second Beis HaMikdash was because of the Torah. In a certain life in the second Beis HaMikdash, this was even more than in the first Beis HaMikdash. But as we spoke last week, that the Sanhedrin HaGadol would sit in the Lishkas HaGazis, Umisham Yete Torah Yisrael, like the pasuk says, Ki mitzid teisei Zar Hashem Yerushalayim. Okay. That's number one. Rashi goes weiter and says, Asher Tasim Lefnehem, Amale HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe like this, Lo yitalal datcha loymar eshna lehem haperek v'halacha bezik kim upamim, ad shetehei sedura b'fim kimishnasa. He says, don't think, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, don't think that you could teach them the perek or the halacha 2 or 3 times until they're going to know it. And then I'm going to have to be matriach myself to understand what you're talking about. Therefore, the pasuk says that you should present it in front of them. You should place it in front of them. Why? Like a table that's set, and you come ready to the meal, ready to eat. So, what does this mean? What does this got to do with anything? So last week we said a pshat. We spoke about it a little bit, but when you come to the beauty of coming to a chasana, the beauty of going to a smorgasbord, is that you don't have to wait to the waiter to bring you the food. You walk over to the food and you get what you need to eat. It's Sidur Lefonov. So Akash Baruch was telling Moshe Rabbeinu over here, he says, he says, you should also explain it to them. Don't say that you'll just be meramis to them different things, and by being meramis to them, you'll expect them to understand the rest of it on their own. Sagrada is so interesting, because the Mishnah Chagiga says that there's certain parts of the Torah, Ma'aseh Bereishis, Ma'aseh Merkava, very esoteric topics, where you're not supposed to go into detail, and you're taka only supposed to teach Rashi Prakim. So, because there's certain derhaibina parts of the Torah, more derhaibina parts of the Torah, if we could even use that term, right? Where Chazal are very careful how it's being taught, that it should be taught properly, right? So over there it says that a person can't learn it in detail. A person could only teach it with Rashi Prakim. Like the basics, give him a bunch of bullet points, and the rest he'll have to figure out on his own. He says, don't think it's like that. It's specific in those specific sugyas of Ma'aseh Bereishis, Ma'aseh Merkava, but not everywhere else. And everywhere else, the Rebbe has to be mefarish, has to explain what's going on. So Shvana Shtel too quickly, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that Adam Rishon was created on Erev Shabbos, Kedei Likones L'Suda Miyad, that he should be able to go into the Suda right away, the Suda Shabbos, the Yom HaShabbos. Bichlal, state in Kadmonim, that if Adam Rishon would have waited to Shabbos to eat from the Eitz Hadas, it wouldn't have been a chet, just that he ate before the proper time, whatever that's supposed to mean. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, Tein Daitcha Shlei Tekalkel, you should have in mind that you shouldn't mess up, you shouldn't, follow the rules that I'm telling you. So the point of Mishpatim is that we shouldn't be mekalkel, because as the parasha continues, Kisik Ne'avid Ivri, right? What happens is, the first dinim that the Torah is talking about is about somebody who messed up, is about somebody who gets sold as an Eved Ivri. Why does a person get sold as an Eved Ivri? Because he stole. He stole and he doesn't have the money to pay back, right? But with this we could also explain what Rashi says earlier, that the Sanhedrin should be by the Beis HaMikdash. Because a person, it says in the same Gemara in Sanhedrin over there, that Adam Mimakum, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Tzever Afra from all over the world, but the Rambam brings in Hilchos Beis HaBechira, and it really comes from a Gemara, that Adam Mimakum Kaparasei Nivra, a person was created in the spot of his kapara, meaning Avar Atav Avar Tashuv, that you were created with a specific kind of dirt. It wasn't just stam dirt, the Avar Atav Avar Tashuv. You were created with the dirt from the Makom HaMikdash, and you will return to. And when a person is chayte, he needs a kapara, so he'll go back to that Makom to be able to correct that, which goes hand in hand with what the Maharsha says in Makis about your miklat, and about that a person running away. That the Gemara says that wherever Adam Rishon was created with the earth from all around the world. The reason is because if he were to die in a specific place, the earth might say, I don't want to be makabel him. He's not mine. He's not he's not that nationality. He doesn't want to accept him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him from all over the world. So anywhere where a person dies, he could get buried there because it's his nationality, has shaykhs to that. So the Maharsha says that's why people like to travel around, right? But a person's chayte, because that brings him closer. When he does tshuva, it brings him closer to his shayrish of where he's originally coming from. So what I want to do tonight is I want to go through a Gemara with a couple of ha'aras and discuss it a little bit. We have a Gemara in Erev and Daf and Daled Amud Beis, and there's a couple of basic ha'aras that we'll discuss. Tanu Rabbanon, Zakti Gemara, again it's Erev and Daled Amud Beis. Keitzad Seder Mishnah. What was the seder of how Moshe Rabbeinu taught Klal Yisrael? How did it work? Was there a set time? Did they go to a certain shir room? Like, what did they do? What happened? What happened when Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to Klal Yisrael? So Moshe lamad mipi hagvura. So Moshe would learn from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Nichnas Aaron. And then Aaron would come in after HaKadosh Baruch Hu finishes talking to Moshe. V'shana le Moshe perkai. And Moshe teaches him whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him. Nistalik Aaron v'yashav l'smal Moshe. So Aaron goes and he sits on the left side of Moshe. So Aaron's sitting on the left. Moshe is sitting on the right. The Gemara has a whole to-do about why it's the right, why it's the left, why Aaron this side, why Moshe that side. I'm not going to get into that now. Rashi says, like the pasuk says in Yeshayav, that a person should see his Rebbe when he's learning, or even not when he's learning, which is Bechlal, people make a big asik out of this, by the Chassidim they make a big asik out of this. People make Gedolim pictures because of this. This became a very popular concept. The question is what it means exactly, but we're not going to get into that now either. But so again, Ketzat say the Mishnah, Moshe Lamed Mipei Gvura Nichnas Aaron V'Shanaloi Moshe Pirka Nestalek Aaron Yashav L'Smel Moshe. Rashi brings a Gemara Chul and says that a Mahalach Limin Rabbi Harei Zabur, that a person who goes on the right side of his Rebbe, and by that making the Rebbe be on the left, see, he's a fool. And Rashi says, Kol Shekein L'Inyan Yeshiva. And certainly you have to be more careful about this when it comes to setting, how to be masad the seating arrangements. It's interesting, because I was thinking, like this, our Meistes HaTorah, our Bate Midrashim were called yeshivas. And I'm chayshish that a little bit maybe because yeshivas don't just teach Torah, they don't just teach about the mitzvahs, they don't just teach mitzvahs types. There's a focus on Kavod Torah. And we see from the Rashi over here, the Rashi says that Kol Shekein L'Inyan Yeshiva, you have to be more makpid on Kavod Torah. Okay, so after Aaron sits on the left side of Moshe, Nichnasu Bana V'Shan Lehem Moshe Pirkon. Then Aaron's children come in and teach them, and Moshe teaches them again. Nistalku Banov. Then after Moshe finishes teaching them, his children leave. Elazar Yoshev Limin Moshe. Elazar, Aaron's son, sits on the right side of Moshe. V'isamar L'Smal Aaron, and Isamar sits on the left side of Aaron. So going from left to right, it would be Isamar, Aaron, Moshe, and Elazar. Okay. Why Pirkon? So Pirkon means that specific limud that they were learning at that time. A parak over here refers to whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teaching them. Not a specific parak of Gemara, a specific parak of Mishnayos, but the Ben Yehoyada brings a Gemara in Psachim that says that the Nevi'im were Masakin Halal, Shiu Emre Maisel, called parak on any specific time or situation. But, so that's that. So Nistalku Bonov, Elazar, Yashav Limin Moshe, V'isamar, L'Smal Aaron. Rabbi Yehuda says, La'olam Aaron Limin Moshe Chayzer. Aaron always sat on the right side of Moshe. Okay, the Gemara goes through this, the Gemara explains why it's important to know who sat where, and the Gemara deals with that. The Gemara goes back to this Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama. Fine. But we're not going to get into that now. Nichnas, who's Kanim, after Elazar and Isamar sat down, the Kanim came in, V'Shan Lehem Pirkon. Nistalku as Kanim, and Nichnasu Kala Am V'Shan Lehem Pirkon. After Moshe Rabbeinu teaches, after that, this Kanim come in, they sit down, Moshe Rabbeinu teaches them. This Kanim get up and they leave. And then all of Klal Yisrael comes to hear what Moshe has to say, and Moshe repeats it again. So the Marsha says that it's Mefurish in the Pasuk. Vayal Moshe v'Aaron v'Nadav v'Avihu v'Shivim Misiknei Yisrael. That on the way up to Matan Torah, this was the order. It was a ranking order. It wasn't random. It was Al Stut Mitacheshbon. Moshe was first, Aaron was second, Nadav and Avihu, right? And then Shiv Miziknei Yisrael. Just point out, the Nadav and Avihu are not here at this point because they were Bekreva HaKadosh. They passed away in the Mishkan for whatever that story was about. The many Tamim and Chazal about what happened to them. But obviously, Elazar and Isamar, the remaining children of Aaron, they took that over. You'll ask where Moshe Rabbeinu's children are. They're not part of the equation over here. But it had an interesting ha'ara because you have Elazar is Aaron's son and Eliezer is Moshe's son, but they don't play a role here. It's quite interesting what was mentioned in Parshas Yisrael. It says Shem ha'echad, Ger Shem ha'echad Eliezer. So how could you say Shem ha'echad Eliezer? He's not the first one; he's the second one. So the Rabbeinu B'chai brings from Chazal that he was echad, he was meyuchad, and he's referring to that the Medrash says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemaim to be Makabel to Torah, he hears that Kadosh Baruch Hu learning, and he says, Eliezer b'ni oimer para bashana, egel bashana para bashtayim. So he says to Kadosh Baruch Hu, what's this? See, he says, this is the para aduma halavai sheyetzis hamechalotzai. That when Moshe Rabbeinu comes up to Shemaim to be Makabel the Torah, he hears HaKadosh Baruch Hu reciting the first Mishnah in Masechta Para, and he says, Eliezer, my son, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanas, says that the Para Aduma needs to be this age, that age, or the other age. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, Halavai, that this person, this Rabbi Eliezer, should be from my descendants. And the pshat in that is because Moshe Rabbeinu had to do whatever he was capable of doing in order to be matzah Klal Yisrael and to save Klal Yisrael from the Egel. And we know that the Parah Adum was mechaper for the Egel, so that's why Moshe Rabbeinu very much wanted that Rabbi Eliezer should be from his descendants to be able to be matzah Klal Yisrael, which is a whole separate shmuz in and of itself. Anyways, so So again, the Seder Dvarim is like this. Nimtzu Zakti Gemara Biad Aaron Arba. Aaron heard it 4 times. Biad Ban of Shloisha. Aaron's children heard it 3 times. Heard the Dvar Hashem from Moshe Rabbeinu 3 times. Biad as Kanim Shnayim. This Kanim heard it twice. Biad Kalam Echad, and the rest of Klal Yisrael heard it once. So Moshe Rabbeinu says everything 4 times. Aaron hears it 4 times. The children of Aaron hear it 3 times. This Kanim hear it twice, and everybody hears it only once. Nistalik Moshe. Then Moshe would leave. Vishanulan Aaron Pirkai. Then Aaron would repeat and explain it the way he understood it to everyone that was there. Nistalik Aaron, Vishanulan Banav. Aaron leaves, and his children, Elazar and Isamar, re-explain everything that was taught until now. Nistalku Banav Shanulan Askenim Pirkan. And then after the children of Aaron left, then these Canaan went and explained everything all over again. So Nimta Biyad Hakol Arba. So Kumtai said everyone learned everything 4 times because Aaron taught it. Aaron heard it 4 times from Moshe, and his children 3 times, and like we explained. Mikan Amr Rebbe Lezer. Over here, Rebbe Lezer says. From this we see Rebbe Lezer says Alocha. It's interesting. This is Rebbe Lezer who we were talking about before. Chayav Odom L'Shanis L'Talmidei Arba'a Pa'omim. A person is mechuyev to teach his talmidim 4 times. Kavul Chaimer, Stachar Kavul Chaimer. Uma Aaron Shalomad Bimpi Moshe, Moshe Mipi Hagvura, Kach Hedit Mipi Hedit Halachas Kama V'Kama. So Gemara makes a Kavul Chaimer. The Gemara says like this: Aaron learned from Moshe. Moshe learned directly from Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and he learned it 4 times. So when a Hedit learned from another Hedit, Halachas Kama V'Kama. When one Hedit is learning from another Hedit, so then certainly you need to learn it at least 4 times. Right, so they say there's 4 lines of Rashi on the top of the page. Vaisichnit, I don't know if that's the real reason or not. That's probably from the printer, as we know that the printers, there was a lot of Siyata Deshmaya that came, there's a lot of Siyata Deshmaya that came after the Gemaras were printed, how everything stems in the Gemara, but that's different shmooze. But I'll upon him that Mikan, a person's mechuyev to teach his Talmidim at least 4 times. As a Kavul Chaimer from Aaron. So here comes the famous Yavitz. The Yavitz in the back of the Gemara, he says, Nira Shahinu Dafka Biyameim Sheulemnim Balpeh. See, the Yavitz says that seems that it's Dafka in those days when they learned everything Balpeh. Ma'ashainkein Akshav Sheulemnim Teich Svarim. Ma'ashainkein today that we learn from Svarim, so we're not going to forget as quickly because everything's written down. Or even if we forget, we could always relearn it much faster. In those days, nothing was written down, so if they would forget it, it would be lost forever. What's a Kavul Chaimer? Aaron was a person who was a great Chacham and he's able to understand. He learned from Moshe that Moshe learned Mipeh HaGvura. There were Nevi'im, you have to understand there were Nevi'im, right? And the clearest understanding that a person in this world was ever able to be Masig was Moshe Rabbeinu's Hasaga, like the Gemara says, Baspaklaria HaMe'ira, the highest level of Nevuah that anybody was ever Masig, without any kind of confusion, without any kind of mechitza, without any sveikis, without any kind of thing, pel pe'adabar boy. It was very clear. Everything was perfectly crystal clear to what Moshe Rabbeinu was learning. And the second most clear person understanding was Aaron. But Aaron still had to get everything 4 times. So if Aaron had to get everything 4 times, so Kavul Chaimer, Hedyet mipi Hedyet. Okay. Rabbi Kiva Omer, sagt the Gemara weiter, Rabbi Kiva Omer, minayin shechayv adon l'shanis l'talmidei ad sheyilamdenu, shenemar v'lamdas b'nei Yisrael. Rabbi Kiva says no. Rabbi Kiva says that a person is mechuyev to teach his talmidim until the Talmud understands. Like the pasuk says, v'lamdas b'nei Yisrael, you should teach Klal Yisrael. Right, that's the pasuk in Hazinu over there about writing a Sefer Torah, that you should teach Klal Yisrael until they understand. So it's mashma. So the Marshal goes through this. There's a shtickle nidin over here to see if Rebbe Lezer and Rebbe Kiva are actually arguing over here or not. Because Rebbe Lezer, it would seem like this. Rebbe Lezer would hold that a person is mechuyev to teach his talmidim, a Rebbe is mechuyev to teach his talmidim 4 times, even if he understands. And Rabbi Kiva says that a person is only mechuyev to teach a person until he understands. If he gets it the first time, doesn't have to repeat it again. Doesn't have to repeat it to him again. Okay? Fine, that's that. And how do you know that when you teach your talmidim that it has to be Sidura B'fiyam, that they're able to recite it properly, that they should say without making any mistakes? Shenemar Sima B'fiyam, like the pasuk says over there by Ve'atza Kisel Chemes Hashira Hazois, right? And what does it say over there? V'lamdas B'nei Yisrael, right? Sima B'fiyam, that should be placed in their mouth. It should be placed in their mouth that they'll be able to say it without making any mistakes. It should flow from their mouths properly. So the Maharsha says that it's possible that even after the Rebbe teaches the Talmud properly, Ein Mishnasei Shgura B'Viv Ve'en Regelba. Could be he understands the concepts, but the text he doesn't have well. Or maybe sometimes he'll have the text, but he doesn't understand the oimik of what he's talking about properly. So that's why you need to say both. And the Maharsha says, therefore the pasuk says you have to place it in their mouth. That the Torah that they're learning needs to be clear and needs to be without any flaws, without any mistakes when they're saying it. It's something that they're fluent in, and they wouldn't need to check it up in a sefer. That's what the Maharsha says. So I was wondering if this is if he's being chaylik on the yav, it's davka or lav davka. But I mean, here's the last nakuda from the Gemara. This is what I want to focus on be'ikar. How do you know that a Rebbe is mechuyev to be mara panim to the Talmud? ואלה המשפטים תשים לפניהם. Because the pasuk says these are the halachas that you should place in front of them. Rashi says laharis lepanim lelamde lasestam b'dvarav, to give him, to teach him, and he should be able to have an understanding to the best of the Rebbe's ability, to the best of the Talmud's ability. And the Rebbe shouldn't say, "Oh, this is how I heard it." You go figure out the Tam on your own. He's like, "Listen, I don't know, but you could go figure it out, and I'm sure you'll get it clear." It's very shvach. A Rebbe has to go out of his way to simplify and explain everything to his Talmidim until the Talmidim understand it properly 100%. So SMS, Gradus has an interesting pshat. He says more pashut. He says lefi pshutai that b'shas the person's learning, he should be marapanim, that he should be able to see the Rebbe's face, like we said before. Right, like we find that Aaron and his children and his Canaan were sitting in front of Moshe to be able to see his face. Right, there is an emek to that, which I want to get to soon, but I'll speak it out a little bit now also. That there's an akuda here that the Gemara says in Brachas, G'daylo shimusha shal Torah yosem milimuda, that the shimush that a person does to Talmidei Chachamim is a lot greater than learning Torah. We always learned that learning Torah is the greatest thing. Yeah, it's true. This is the greatest level of learning Torah. Yeah, Baruch Hashem, talking with people here that that were zeichet to tremendous shimush Chachamim. The Nakuda is like this. The Maharsha, the Maral in the Archaim and Ovis, in the Mishnah, the Memches Kinyan Shatar Niknas Behem, one of them is Shimush Chachamim. So he says this very big kitzer. It doesn't elaborate on it, but this is the gist of what he's saying. He says that when a person learns Torah from a Rebbe, and his Rebbe is only for this year, he comes for the lecture, he leaves. He doesn't have a shaykhis to the Rebbe doesn't have a shaykhis to him, he imparts his wisdom, he leaves, Zay Gesund. The Nakud of a Rebbe is that you have to watch the Rebbe. The Rebbe is a serious Ebed Hashem. You'll learn Avas HaTorah from a Rebbe. You learn Yerusha Shamayim from a Rebbe. You learn Avas Yisrael from a Rebbe. You learn Derech Eretz from a Rebbe. You learn Hanhogis. You learn Midas Tavis from a Rebbe. By just hearing a lecture, you just need to go to the store and buy a tape. You don't need to go to the shiur. Why do you need to go to the shiur for? Because you could pick up from the facial expressions, from the movements, from there's a certain derheibendkeit, if we could use that term, when you're watching a Rebbe in real time being active during a shiur, because you're connecting to the entirety of the Rebbe, and it goes and we'll take it a step weiter. It's not just that you get the nuances of the lumdus of the shiur, when you're watching the Rebbe, but even when the Rebbe's not in shiur, when the Rebbe's on vacation, when the Rebbe's sitting and reading a newspaper, when the Rebbe's talking about current events, you'll see what his approach is. You'll get an appreciation. You'll start understanding his appreciation of the world. That's much more about being married upon him, which we'll get a little more into in a short while. So I just want to go through the Rambam says in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Dalet Halacha Dalet Azoi. Harav Shalomad v'lehevinu haTalmidim. The Rabbi gave a shir the Talmidim didn't understand. Lo yichos aleim. You should not get angry at them b'yirgas and get upset. Elochayzer v'shoyna hadov v'afilu kama pa'amim ad sheyavinu omek ha'halacha. He chazers and he repeats again until they understand the omek ha'halacha. And the Medaik, why does Rambam say that they have to understand the omek ha'halacha? Well, the pshat is like we said before. The Rashi says, like Rashi said in the beginning of the parasha, that, go figure it out on your own, right? Maybe I know the din, maybe I know the halacha, but there's a certain oimika din that I want to hear from the Rebbe also. Also, on the Talmud's end, he shouldn't say, I understood, and he didn't really understand. He should go back and ask the Rebbe again many times. If the Rebbe gets upset why he keeps on coming back to him, he should tell the Rebbe, he should tell the Rebbe, listen, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, it doesn't go into my head, I need you to be patient with me. Right? If the Rebbe's patient with him, he'll get somewhere. Yeah? So I saw how on the Rambam like this. The Gemara in Eruvin doesn't go through anything about Kas. Everything else is mentioned in the Gemara. So what's pshat in the Kas over here? Right? What's pshat the Rambam says that the Rebbe shouldn't get angry. And it's true, it's a Mishnah, Kaptan Lomei, right? And there's other Gemaras that talk about how Rebbe can't get angry at the Talmidim. So what's up pshat over here? So if the pshat is that we're going to learn it out from Reb Preda, which is, following this Gemara in Eruvin, Reb Preda had a Talmud that he needed to teach him everything 400 times. And if he didn't, and every single thing was 400 times. One day, he said that, he wasn't focused. So Reb Preda taught it to him another 400 times. So Baskel came up from Shemayim and asked him, do you want to live 400 years? Do you want your whole 400 more years? Or do you want your whole door to be Zeichat Elam Haba? So he said, I want my whole door to be Zeichat Elam Haba. So the Baskel said, because you were so concerned about your whole generation that you wanted all of them to have Elam Haba, you'll get 400 years and you'll get Elam Haba. Your whole generation will get Elam Haba as well. The question is, why did the Baskel come out just for Preda and not the Talmud? The Talmud also had to sit through Preda's explanation another 400 times why he doesn't get any schar. So Chacham Avadia Yosef Gezakt, he said, allegedly, I actually think I saw printed one of his son's farm, that the Baskel didn't want to have to come out 400 times, because everything the Talmud needed to hear was 400 times. Yeah? But I saw a pshat like this in a sefer called Ben Yedid. It says like this. The Rambam's explaining from this Nakuda of the Gemara, that the Gemara says that Minayin Shachariv Laharis Leiponim, Shenam Vaela Mishpatim Asher Tasim Lefneim. So when you're being maraponim to somebody, meaning you're showing pleasure in the fact that the other person's here, so you can't get angry at them. So it's nichlal, it's included in this halacha, that you can't get angry with him even if he asks many, many times. So he says, you'll tell me, you want to bring me a raya from Rav Preda? He said Rav Preda was a special type of chassid. He was mamish l'fnim mishur sadin. You can't bring me a raya from him, right? But other than that, the Gemara doesn't mention anything. But l'chayr, it's in this nakuda minayin shechayiv laharis leipanim, and it brings the mechilta, which Rashi brings part of it. Rabbi Kiva says ve'ela המשפטים. Ve'ela המשפטים lama nemar. Why does it say ve'ela המשפטים? Lufishu omer dabra b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim. It says dabra b'nei Yisrael, you should speak to b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim, and should say to them shana v'shilish v'rava ad sheyilmadu. So Moshe had to repeat it to them a second, third, and fourth time until they would learn it. Shenemar v'lamdas b'nei Yisrael. That's just about the same as what our Gemara says. Yochel l'meidam v'leishainim. You would think that they would be able to, that if it would be good enough just if they would be able to learn it and they wouldn't be able to repeat it, meaning they wouldn't be fluent with the lashon of the Torah that they were learning. Talmud loymar sima b'fiyam. Zak the pasuk, they need to be fluent in what they're saying also. Or maybe they should be fluent in what they're saying, but they have no idea what they're talking about. Like, unfortunately, there are people that they think that that's how you're supposed to learn, by reading, and not understanding anything. Talmud Leimer Ve'ela Mishpatim. That's what the pasuk says. Ve'ela Mishpatim. Arucham Lefneim K'Shulchan Aruch. Spread it out in front of them like a Shulchan Aruch, like a set table. Shenemar Ata Hareisa L'tas. Because the pasuk says that I showed you so that you could know, meaning that Hashem made everything spread out in front of us, easy for us to be able to understand, to be able to learn. So, if this is true, since you're mechuyev to teach him until he's able to understand the Omek HaHalacha, so then Meichatesi it's mutter to get angry at him. So it's mechuyev min hadin of laharis leipanim. So I think that the Omek of laharis leipanim over here is the following. The Svarim bring that what it means over here is laharis leipanim, is that we know that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu by Har Sinai, it was the greatest gilui that ever happened in the world. And l'chayra, it's the greatest thing that ever happened. Now, the Torah is broken up into 4 sections. There's Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Seid. 4 levels of understanding the Torah. Yeah? So, that's the, and they explain, Kenega, that these are the 4 times that Moshe Rabbeinu had to repeat it. Each one was in a different one of these Mahalchim of Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Seid. I don't want to get into this, but I do want to say an akut over here. When we say that the Rebbe is mechuyev laharis leipanim, it means, I want to break it down into 3 things. The Rebbe has to show the Talmud that there's panemius in the Torah, and that there's a panemius in the Rebbe, right? Like we said before, the Gedelu Shemush Yesim and Limudah Shel Torah, that a Rebbe has to welcome the Talmud into his life and show him that there's a panemius, that there's something more than what meets the eye in the Torah, that he's in the Torah and in the lifestyle that the Rebbe's leading. And also that the Rebbe has to show the Talmud that the Talmud himself has pneumius. So there's pneumius in the Torah itself. There's a pneumius in the Rebbe, and there's a pneumius in the Talmud also. And we know the Gemara Nedarim says that really after the Egel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to give the Torah to Klal Yisrael. He said they're not right to have the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll give it to you, Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu nog b'tayvas einav v'naseh Yisrael. And Moshe Rabbeinu, because he loved Klal Yisrael so much, it was b'tayvas einai, because of his generosity, and because of his good eye, and because he saw only the good in people, he really wanted to give the Torah to Klal Yisrael, and that's the Torah that we have it today. It's from the tayvas ayin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, interesting, we spoke about Rabbi Eliezer before. Rabbi Eliezer is the one that says, ayin tayv in Pirkei Avos. So I want to explain it this way. Shteiz and Chazal is tackled by Raisa Bar Alma. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world by looking in the Torah. We said before, Rashi says, Ve'ela המשפטים, vav ma'aseh halini rishon. The vav is coming to add on to the previous halachas. And we said before that just like the previous halachas were mentioned at Har Sinai, so too these halachas were mentioned by Har Sinai, like the Gemara says in Brachas, that I would think that dinim are dina shlama bi'almahu, that the point of dinim is just to make peace between the people in the society. Kamash mulan the dinim nami hainu Torah. So the Gemara comes to teach us that the dinim are also Torah. And l'chayr, this is the ma'alot of Talmid Chacham, because we say, it's a Gemara, we say it in davening also, Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. Talmidei Chachamim, they're marbim, there's a riboy, they create a tremendous amount of peace in the world. Everything that they do, they go and they create more and more shalom in the world. So you'll say, how could that be? Right? They're always arguing, right? There's 2 Jews, 3 opinions, right? So what does it mean? That Talmidei Chachamim are the most opinionated people that you'll find. And yet, at the same time, they're marbim shalom ba'olam. They make peace in the world. Pshat is because, like the Gemara says in Kedushin, that there's a father that's arguing with his son, v'harav is talmidei, v'ezvahiv b'sufa. Mitchila, they're oivim ze'ezeh. In the beginning, it looks like they hate each other. And at the end, natsu oivim ze'ezeh. They love each other. They sincerely love each other. We're just arguing. It's machlekes in learning. As we say all the time, the Gemara says, Elu ve'elu. The Gemara says in a few places, Elu ve'elu d'rei Elokim chayim. Both of them are the words of Hashem. No one's better than this one, and no one's better than that one. Beis Shammai holds he's chayiv, and Beis Hillel holds he's pater. It's perfectly fine. It's Eil Ve'ela Divrei Elokim Chaim. Now we have to know what halach is sometimes. Fine, so we'll figure it out. Right? But l'chara, that's the pshat in Tamar Dechama Marbim Shalom Bailam. I want to be oimid on something very interesting. That the Mechilta ends off over here. Rebbe Kiva ends off in the shtickle in the Mechilta. He says that Ve'ela Mishpatim, Talmud Loimar Ve'ela Mishpatim, Orcham Lefeneim Keshulchan Aruch, spread it out in front of them like a table that said everything laid out perfectly. Shenemar Atar Reis Aladas. The pasuk says Atar Reis Aladas. Now we know what the pasuk is. We know what the pasuk of Atar Reis Aladas is talking about. By Matan Torah, the pasuk says Atar Reis Aladas Ki Hashem Elokim Einod Mulvadai. Rashi says over there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Pasach Lahem Shiva Rekiyim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu opened the 7 skies for them. Ukashem Shakaras Al Yonim Kach Karas HaTachtainim. The same way he opened up the 7 Rekiyim, he opened up all the El Yonim, he opened up all the Tachtainim, and they all saw 100% clarity that there was Einod Mulvadai. So, the way I want to understand this now, Kafi, what we explained before, is that the point of the Rebbe is to show the Talmud, A, that there's a pnimius in the Torah, and B, the Talmud could have a shaykhus to this pnimius. And by the Rebbe welcoming this Talmud into his pnimius, then all these 3 pnimiuses can connect, right? And that's a pshat, asher tasim לפניהם, into their pnimius. Asher tasim לפניהם should put it into their pnimius. But the Nakud is like this, that the pnimius HaTorah that was being nizgala to them by Matan Torah was that they saw the entirety. They saw the entirety, and they understood with perfect clarity that istakel by rise of bara alma. They were able to look in the world and in the physical world, and they were able to see where exactly and how exactly HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Meaning, they saw a tree and they understood the Omek HaTorah of where HaKadosh Baruch Hu was bara alma from the Torah. They saw the Torah, they were able to see the tree. They saw the tree, they were able to see the Torah. It worked both ways. That's the pnimius over here. And where do I get this from? It comes from the Gemara. Because the Gemara says in Chagiga like this. The Gemara says that there's a mitzvah of Riyah, that a person has to go to the Beis HaMikdash, Shalosh Pa'am Ba'ashan Yirah Kol Zechuchas Pnei Hashem Alekecha, right? A person has to go to the Beis HaMikdash 3 times a year for Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. And it says, Yirah Yirah, the same way you have to be seen, the same way you have to be seen there, you have to see there, right? Summa B'achzam Einav is Pater Min Ariyah. Person who's blind in one eye, he's Pater from Ariyah because he can't see properly, right? The Yerushalmi Chagiga says that a shaita is Pater from Riyah. A fool, a person who doesn't have das, is Pater from Riyah. Shenemar, because the pasuk says, Ata Harei Sol Das. I actually wasn't sure. I didn't check up to Yerushalmi, but I don't think it says Shenemar. But it says, because it's Ata Harei Sol Das, right? If there's no das, then das means a connection. A person can't connect to the Beis HaMikdash properly if he doesn't have the basic knowledge. Steht in Chazal, steht Gemara Brachos, Kol mi sheyesh b'deya kilu nivneh Beis HaMikdash b'yamav. A person who has das, as if the Beis HaMikdash was created in his day, it was built in his days. Doesn't mean that but if you're Omer that we're talking about Torah, the only thing that's left over from the Chum Beis HaMikdash is the Torah. That's all that we have left. So a person who has das, that means that he's being Isaac b'Torah. So it makes perfect sense that it's Kilun Nivneh Beis HaMikdash b'Yamav. And that's what we started off with Rashi, that the Mizbeach, that the Sanhedrin should be Eitzel HaMikdash, because we're still keeping that alive today. And a person also has this koyach of incorporating this das within him, because the tachlis of the Torah is that a person should be makar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the point of why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Torah in this eifin of istakel b'raisa barama, that by looking at the world will come to Avas Hashem. By looking at the Torah will come to Avas Hashem. It's different levels. It's not the same way, but it's 2 means to come to the same idea. And that's the pshat in Gedel Shemoshe Yosem Limuda. Because it's not the pshat that he's just seeing the Rebbe, he's just getting the knowledge of the Torah from the Rebbe, but he's connecting to the whole surah of the Rebbe, he's connecting to the whole kaima of the Rebbe, with all the different movements. And that's the pshat in why we're saying that Kishulchan Aruch Lefnehem, when a person goes to smorgasbord, they're not hiding anything under the tablecloth. They're not hiding anything under the table. Maybe they are, but the point is that they're not telling you that there's anything else there. Everything that they needed to see, everything that they needed to know was there b'shas Matan Torah. So that's what's going on. And the pshat is that vav ma'aseh alinyan rishon. What's pshat in a vav? Because vav is 6. 6 is all the 4 directions of the world, l'mayla l'mata, and they were able to see all that, and they're able to see that with a ganze klarkeit. They were on the madregas hanavua by Matan Torah on a tremendous level, right? And that's the pshat, and that's the pshat in tsim לפניהם, that it should go into their pneumius, like the Medrash says, Rishah Shasham Yisrael Anochi Nitke Talmud Torah B'libam. That when Klal Yisrael heard Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the Torah was planted in their hearts. It wasn't just the Torah; it was the Avos Torah, it was the whole everything that comes with it, the Kavod Torah. And when Klal Yisrael heard La Yelecha, it was Parachav Avodah Mehem. It got rid of the Yetzer Hara from within them. I just want to end up with just a line from the Alkot, a line from the Medrash. Pasuk says in Bishalach, Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shemay. Lama namar. Why does it say this? That Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shemay. Lefisha nigla aleim alayam ki gibor oisa milchama. They saw the Gilui Shechina by Kriyas Yamsuf was like a warrior, like a gibor oisa milchama, making a war. Shenamar Hashem ish milchama. But by Sinai nigla aleim b'Sinai kezakin malirachimim. But when Hashem appeared to them at Sinai, He appeared to them as an older elderly person, Malay Rachamim, extending Himself to like almost like with a varmkeit, to show them the varmkeit of Torah, to show them the Geshmak in Torah, and that's really the pshat k'shulchan aruch lefneim. Not that you go figure it out. He's an older person who has patience to deal, to explain it with them, to explain it to them until they understand it properly. Like Rashi brings at the beginning of the parasha that don't just tell them the Rashi Prakma and go figure it out on your own. You have to be like a Zakein Malay Rachamim, that when you're Malay Rachamim, you're gonna have endless patience to deal with it until the person is able to fully understand it. You wrote something that we should be able to fully understand and comprehend all the Torah that we're learning.
Shkoyach. All right. We'll be in touch.
Yep.